Okay, we'll go ahead and get started now. Today, we're going to cover part of the MREA with pages 217 to 248, I believe, and it's the net a million section. I'm not sure how much of the book you've read or how many times you've read it. The other day I was listening to a podcast and had a guy gave a great suggestion, which was instead of reading a new book every month, so 12 books a year, read the same book 12 times over. Make sure you master it. And the MREA is a book that you definitely want to, you can read, 12, 15 times and still not feel like you really mastered the book. So phenomenal book here. And we're just going to kind of jump right into it. I'm going to try to keep it within an hour. If you have to go, it is being recorded so that you can come back and see us later time. I do talk kind of fast, so you can come back and listen to it a second time too, if you ever need to. So kind of just really kind of get jumping in. I really like to get into, as far as net in a million and talk about the models and implementing the models. And that's one of the hardest things when it comes to MRA, sometimes for agents is, kind of getting in there. So earlier in the book, we talked about the 3 L's, listing, leads, and leverage. And then the fourth model is the money model. And the last area is we're going to kind of get to this later on in the book is the challenges. And what it really comes down to is the individual agent, the challenge you face as an agent, and the challenge that you put up yourself to your own success. What limits your own personal growth and what limits your business growth. And that's going to be kind of the last little section that we cover. So just kind of jumping right in. And a lot of, leads are obviously is the largest part of your business and the foundation where the whole, your whole company should rest upon. One of the things I love the most about Gary Keller is when I've heard him talk over the last 10 years, his message, while he changes a little bit, the basic the message, the basic fundamental message has not changed. And that is lead generate, lead generate, lead generate. Your database, the people that's what's most important. Always, as long as you can control your lead generation, you can control your business. He talks about not outsourcing lead generation, talks about the pitfalls relying upon third parties such as Zillow. If you're doing your own lead generation, nobody can take that away from you. Other agents can kind of try and move into your territory. Zillow, let's face it, they can cut your leads out. They can double the price. They can do all kinds of things if you sign up at the different places, not just Zillow, but the other companies. But as long as you're doing your lead generation, you're talking to people and building your database every day, you're building a business that no one can take away from you. And so that's really important to constantly be doing that. And so what are some of the problems with net in the million and working with those listings and working with your database and your leads? So anyway, you want to build a system of leads that has strong lead generation, emphasis on marketing, and consistent increases the number of leads. So always bringing in new people, always communicating with your current database and trying to expand it. Tracking and converting leads to others. So that becomes a challenge when you start adding people to your team. Protecting your lead generation focus time. And then weighing your options, the process of discovering what works for you and what doesn't always work. And here we'll talk in a couple minutes about people who go to seminars and they buy what we call it the shiny new product or whatever it might be. So listings, knowing the minimum number that you need for each month, and getting sellers to accept the team concept. For some people, that's a challenge. Sometimes it's not. But consistent marketing through your leads, through your listings and generate your leads, and leverage, making the time to learn and implement. So since this book came out, we've changed courses a little bit. You used to call it RTC, Recruit, Train, Connect, and Keep process. Or we actually just started really calling it Recruit Select as a short term for it. Now we use, you can use the Recruit Select methodologies, but we use some different tests and some different things. And so the class, if you want to learn how to hire somebody properly, it's a great class to take. So hiring capacity versus cul-de-sac. We're going to talk a lot about that because that's a huge difference there. And achieving accountability to the right standards. Creating teamwork with rock and roll and combining quality services and quantity services. and sticking to the budget model, controlling your costs. Why spend more money if you're not going to make any more money? So, and staying focused on the 20% and contributing your life to maintain your energy as a high level. So those are the general topics we're going to kind of cover. And since we only have an hour, we'll go kind of quick through a lot of these things. Scary talks about the biggest challenge you're facing building your sales business at a high level is committing to focus on lead generation, no matter what leads you have or how busy you become. And it's a real large pitfall. You'll see people, I can remember, and I, even today, I fall into it, where it's a roller coaster. Yeah, 1 month you're having a great month. You're selling all kinds of stuff. Then the next month, all of a sudden, nothing. Yeah. And what happened is you got a lot of business, and then you nurtured that business. And while you're nurturing that business, you didn't generate any new business. So that month you were great. The next month you had nothing. And sometimes you end up with 2 or 3 or even 4 months without anything. So it's important to never veer off the lead generation. Always, as Gary says, keep your foot on the gas pedal. So keep the lead generation on and working at all times. It'll keep you out of the roller coasters of the coaster ride. And one of the great ways to do that, Gary talks about time blocking and doing a time commitment. So if you do your lead generation, remember from the one thing, do your lead generation first thing in the morning and make that your first commitment, then that will guarantee that you get that done every day. If that's what's most important to you, is the one thing says is do what's most important first. You know, if that's your one thing, do that first. For some people, that may mean telephone calls or cold calls or door knocking or something else. You got to find out what works for you. Lead generation doesn't always necessarily, telephone is a great way because it's inexpensive and you can talk to a lot of people, but maybe there's another methodology that works for you. So you need to find out what works best for you and your personality type that hits the most amount of people possible in the least cost and the fewest amount of time. And that to make your lead generation work for you. And again, Gary comes back and talks about the leads tend to go through an up and down cycle of activity and cash flow. When you have lots of business and there's lots of income seems secure, you focus on service and administration. And then when there's not enough business and the income is a risk, then you shift your focus back. So he talks about the up and down system. And I've been on it many times before. It's frustrating. It's hard to do, and it's hard to get away from it. But just keep focus on lead generation as your primary thing, and every day. So, but I also love this. Now, I'm not sure what year he wrote this book. I want to say it's was back in around 2000. But marketing is best and most effective when database driven. Databases are built through acquisitions, captured leads, referrals, and targeted lists. This is a pragmatic approach in a few hours a week. So basically what he's saying is, build your database. You got to build and feed it like a baby. Every day you got to take care of it a little bit, feed it, change its diaper, add some people in there, talk to everybody, put notes, add new people to your database. A lot of people, Bowl tells us talk to 25 new people a day or 20 people a day. You want to try to at least add 5 people to your database every day, whenever possible. Always be building your database. The bigger your database, the better off it is. The more, healthy it is, and the more income potential you have. Because we know that people inside your database have a much higher rate of closing. So you get more sales out of your database if you work it harder than going out and standing at Lowe's and handing out business cards. That's kind of might mean a lot of people, but doesn't guarantee a lot of business. So tracking and converting leads to others. So as you get better about building your business and converting your leads and tracking your own information, you'll start adding people to your team. And so therefore you start working, tracking your leads and converting through others. So once a lead is generated, they must be followed up on and turned into appointments. These appointments generate a predictable number of signed buyers and seller representative agreements. So when you sit there and you do your business plan for next year, you're going to be able to backwards track how many sales you want to have. And it'll tell you based upon your prior numbers or the industry average, if you don't have prior numbers, how many, if you want, say, 10 transactions for the year, how many appointments you have to go on to, or how many contracts you have to write. And for those many contracts, how many listings do you have to get? And for those many listings, how many listing appointments you have to go on to? And then backtrack beyond that. So how many calls or appointments you need to make to get the listing appointments, or how many calls you need to make. and works it all the way back to how many different conversations you have to have in order to get that. So it's some verifiable numbers. But as long as you use some basic scripts, you can go from, if I make X amount of calls per day, I should be able to get X amount of appointments and X amount of listings and X amount of sales per year. So knowing those numbers, you can set your goal and then also work with your team members to set their goal and help them achieve their goal. So again, as long as they're making the calls, and you can teach anybody a script. As long as they can say the script, which anybody can say, then they can get the appointments and they can get the listing or the buyer and then get the sale. So it's a proven methodology. And as you track all your numbers the whole way through, you kind of realize where you need to improve. If maybe you really, you make a lot of phone calls, you get very few appointments. Okay. So maybe that's a script you need to work on. Maybe you get a lot of appointments and you don't really get many listings. Okay, that means you work on your listing presentation. Maybe you get a lot of listings that don't really sell. Well, maybe your price is too high. Maybe you need to work on your CMAs. There's, once you start tracking everything, it gives you the ability to figure out where you need to improve or how you can improve. And then as you track and you get your numbers down better, you kind of know more about what to expect from year to year. Okay, I know that if I do 10 appointments, I can get 1 sale. Okay, so that just means if I want 10 sales, and I need to do 100 appointments throughout the course of the year. So you can backwards track those once you know your numbers. Let's see. So Gary talks about in here that, holding people accountable. And when you hire people and turn them into a predictable. So you know how your numbers should be. Your people who work for you should be the same type of thing. If you know they go on 10 appointments, they should get X amount of sales out of it, or how many appointments they should be setting, how many calls. So you can backtrack them. The important thing about this, though, is understanding this. Hiring talent is not your only issue. So as you hire people, hiring them is not your only issue. You have an ongoing responsibility in regard to assume proper tracking and converting. This brings us back to the engine that drives the process, your database. As the lead comes in, you'll need a lead tracking process to place it consistently, used, and accurate. This process must ensure that the lead is captured, who it is, and whom will contact the source, and where did it come from. So you want to track your leads, where they come from. You want to make sure it gets systems in place. So, if I have a lead come in, where did it come from, and who's going to take care of it, and what is the process they're going to make? How often do they call? Who's going to call it? How often do they call? Will they show property without having a pre-approval? There's a lot of factors in there. So you want to set up a system for your team, or either for yourself or for your team. And when you're thinking about it, you always want to think big, because you don't really know what's going to happen in the future. While you could be a large team now, or it could be a single agent, if you're a single agent now, you might be a large team in 2 years. If you're on a large team now, you might be a single agent in 2 years, but make sure that everything you create, all your systems, are scalable. So you have a system of what's going to happen with leads, who's going to follow up with them, what's the process for doing that. Tom Wirt is a guy who used to work for Lori Ballin. I don't know if you guys know who Lori Ballin is, but a couple of years ago at Mega Camp, I was talking to Tom Wirt. He was running the team for Lori at the time. And I told him that, I was a little frustrated because I had a bunch of buyer's agents who weren't producing the numbers that I kind of expected them to produce. My numbers are down. And Tom said, well, you can get really aggressive with, I guess, supervising them. And I said, well, they just don't seem like the group who are going to take well to that. And he said, well, then ultimately you have a numbers game. If you're not getting the numbers you want, you don't have enough buyer's agent, or you don't have the right buyer's agents. Buyer agents who either need to produce more or you need to hire more. Is in essence what he said. So you need to solve those through the number problem. And then he said something that was really profound to me. He said that your database and the list of names, he said, you're handing out leads to people. They're not following up the way you want them to, and you're basically giving them the most important asset in your business. Every name you hand out to somebody is worth $5,000-$6,000, because average sale price figure about $200,000. So every name that you hand to a buyer's agent, somebody else, that's a $5,000 check. And so I would have the buyer's agents come in every day, like, what do you have for me? And I'd hand them this $5,000 check, and they would just take it home and put it in their car on the dashboard and not follow up with them. So it really changed how I viewed the buyer's agents and how I viewed my all my leads. I decided that my leads were my most important thing, And I really kind of stopped giving out a lot of leads. I basically said, you can't prove with the one I gave you yesterday, I'm not going to give you a new one today. So definitely get greedy with your leads and work them. Every single one of those names in your database is worth at least $5,000 to you. So, call around, see if you can get that $5,000 out of them. Anyway, so back to systems. So over the years, worked with hundreds of agents, and what these agents discovered by assessing their systems was that they really don't know who was performing and who was not. So when you had a bunch of agents, buyer's agents, and the performance wasn't matching their expectations, what Gary found is that nobody was really tracking the agents. Nobody was tracking the numbers and their systems and what they were doing. So who was performing, who was not. So by creating the systems in there to track all your leads and what your agents are doing, again, the systems, then who's performing, who's not, who it may be time to let them go, or who might need a promotion. It just depends on the particular situation. So let's see. So you want to track the lead conversion process. This is to say, once they discover the power and benefits of tracking the lead conversion process, these agents never turn back. They put a lead tracking in place, and they want to make sure, because they found agents were cherry picking, or they had a lack of focus and just weren't following up that it should. So the careful attention to tracking lead conversion is one of the core disciplines of the millionaire real estate agent. You have to track your numbers you have to know where your leads are coming from and who's assigned to follow them and where you are. How do you know do you know how you're doing for the year? Are you tracking how your sales are for the year? Are you tracking how your appointments, all of those types of information? The more you track, the better you know how to improve, and you know where you are for the year and whether you're having a better year than what you had last year. And you can work on having a better year next year. So make sure that every so often, maybe like at least once a week, you pull away from working in your business to work on your business. And what I mean by that is do your lead, your lead gen, all the various things you do, but maybe take an hour or two every week and just think about what can you do to improve your business, track your numbers, and make sure where you are. A lot of your tracking can be done by your system. So, all right, so protecting your lead generation focus time. While time really isn't money, it's convertible into money. Ultimately, lead generation is the most dollar productive activity you can do for your real estate business. So Gary has said this all along. He says it over and over and over. Lead generation is what makes you money. And that's the most productive thing. And regardless of what level you're in the company or what your job is in the company, you still lead generate. From top to bottom, everyone needs to lead generate. So let's see. The problem with being CEO is that you might be pulled back and engaged day to day. So as you hire people and you kind of remove yourself a little bit, from time to time you may have to step back in. And the worst part is when you get kind of a mid-level, because then you get pulled back in to take care of problems and take care of issues. So you get sucked away from your lead generation because they want you to handle this or handle that. So one of the things when you're hiring talent, we're going to talk about this later on, is making sure not to hire cul-de-sac talent. You want to make sure you hire talent that can handle these kind of problems. And so that way you can focus on what's most important for your business. So let's see, to avoid this process, make a commitment to block off substantial regular time. So in other words, to avoid the distractions. Block off substantial time and regular time in your calendar to devote to lead generation. This is the time to use the prospect follow-up on existing leads, develop and implement marketing plans. To be able to do this, you must hold others accountable to their positions. For handling administrative service, personnel issues, whatever comes up, delegate, train, and consult, but let others handle all the details. This will allow you time to focus on what's most important in your business, lead generation. So if you're hiring the right people, they can handle a lot of this for you, and so you don't get stuck handling that. So, and we're going to move on to page 226. Weighing your options and process to discover what works for you and what doesn't. So, lead generation is an art as well as a science. Successful lead generations pay attention to become very knowledgeable over time over what works and what does not work for their specific market. So many agents do spur of the moment ideas of the month marketing and prospecting. They adopt new lead generation programs the latest, greatest, and the best and most creative ideas ever seminar, or else whatever they went to. And this is something I see a lot of times when I go to, when you go to some of the big conventions like Family Union or Mega Camp. People will just, they buy, we call it the shiny objects. They chase the shiny object because, oh, hey, there's a new way to prospect, a new way to lead generate, a new way to get business. And they take what's working and drop it. They drop what's working to try something new, right? So what you want to do is, as you go to these seminars, you go to these different things, and you hear something that sounds good and you want to try it, make that something you add to your system as opposed to replacing what you're doing. So keep doing what you're doing and keep working at doing your lead generation at a high level. But if you want to try, say, mailers, or you want to try door knocking or something else, whatever that might be, make sure you add to that and then be able to track that separately so you can see, well, is this working? Because what you want to make sure is that, you're not just spinning your wheels and wasting time. Now, that also being said, sometimes, especially when the new agent comes in, they say, well, hey, I want to try this or I want to try that. And an older experienced agent will say, well, that doesn't work. So look into it. Did it just not work for them? And why did it not work for them? Maybe they did a mailer one time. Maybe, they didn't follow up with the door knocking. There's all kinds of reasons why something might not have worked. But there's a lot of different ways you can lead generate, and just explore them, explore several of them and see if they can add to your business. Don't just instantly give up because somebody else said, it doesn't work, because it may be just the way they did it. So the biggest thing is, though, is whenever you spend money, any kind of lead generation, you want to hold that money accountable. Very early in the book, we talk about the red light, green light. Spend money, find a way to track whatever the item is, find a way to track and make sure it's going to do okay for you, and make sure it's going to perform. And it's got to perform better than something else. Now, if it's not performing well, again, what is the reason? Is there something you can change, something you can fix? Or is it time just to move and put your money somewhere else? So there's always begin with the tried and true. Do that first, and do it with a plan, a budget, a message, and a target audience. So when you plan out your marketing, do the tried and true first, budget, plan, and target audience. And then just don't discount a program because it's not yield results, nor do they tell wholeheartedly in love with one that does. So on page 227, that whole middle paragraph, I highlighted that when I was reading this book because I feel like this whole paragraph is great. So basically, it's talking about what real estate agents do when they lead generate. They always begin with the tried and true. They do that first. Then they go with a plan, a budget, a message, and a target audience. They don't discount a program because it does not yield immediate results, nor do they feel wholeheartedly in love with one that does. The ones who look like marketing and prospecting geniuses do it consistently over time and meticulously track and source their leads. They then weigh the cost of the plan against their net results so they can get a clear sense of their cost per lead. Tracking, sourcing, and costing over time provides the information needed to judge accurately the merits of the particular method. Only after the lead generation model has been practiced and analyzed do they start adding creativity and tweaking the model according to their past results and new information. Their goal is simple. They want to discover the formula in a particular market that yields the greatest number of leads for the most reasonable amount of money. For all of its creativity and art, the part of marketing and prospecting that is a science always rules. This sort of system, when applied to a variety of techniques over time, will help you discover the best ways to promote the strength in your business in a particular area. So like I said, this whole page I really like. This page 227, and I really like that paragraph. I think it's dead on them. Well, I mean, the whole book is pretty much dead on, but I think that paragraph really kind of speaks to me. So knowing the minimum number of seller listings you must for each month. So as you set your goal for the year, you know how many seller listings you have to have at any given time. So if you know how many you need to have, you know how many you currently have, then obviously the gap there is what you need to get. And what are you going to do to reach that gap? So work for it as your seller listing. So from once you know the number for your GCI goals, from there it shows the number of listings you need to close, and even with how many appointments you need to take. So again, with that numbers, working away the numbers back of how many appointments do I have to make in order to get the listings and how many listings do I have to have in order to get sales and how many calls do I have to get the appointments. So knowing your numbers really helps out here. Let's see. Something I thought particularly valuable right now in a hot seller's market generally leads to a higher percentage of listings that sell in less time for a better price. Okay, kind of obvious right now, but it also creates more FSBOs for sale by owners and entice more agents actively to work the listing side of the business, which can undermine your listing efforts. Some of this is predictable across the board, but most of these factors are driven by local market conditions that we need to understand fluently with your native tongue. If you stay on top of those key conversion rates, appointments to listings, agreements, and listings taken to sales, you'll be better prepared to anticipate and react to market shifts. It does also go back to what happens when in a buyer's market, but basically just saying that in a market like we're currently in, there is going to be more competition. There's going to be more FSBOs, more competition, and so you need to set yourself apart. So the length of time the average home sits on the market will have a telling effect on your net income. If you're not accustomed to when homes stay on the market longer, you may need to take more of a right price approach. But if listings sell quickly, you'll have to speed up your marketing so you have time to get the desired additional leads manufactured from listings usually provides. So in a buyer's market, you definitely generate a lot more leads from listings than what we're currently seeing. I mean, the homes are coming and going so quick that sometimes it's harder to market them. So basically, Gary's saying, look, if the home's going to sell real fast, you need to express your marketing to try and get as many leads out of it as you can. So let's see. Move on to page 230. So listen to the minimum number of each month. Was great. Ben Kenny was talking about how when his business first started taking off, he had a problem he was so busy with listings that he for a while he didn't even bother with buyers. People would call him to talk about want to buy it, hey, I want to see your listing, I want to see it. And he said, I just wouldn't call him back. And eventually he started giving out the leads to other people. And then that's when it's like, oh, maybe I should form a team because I'm doing so well. But he got so tied up with his listings and he realized that the listing was such an important part of the business that he just didn't even call buyers back. And I'm not encouraging you to do that. I'm just saying that you really want to focus right now on sellers as much as you can, and maybe get somebody to help with the buyers if you need help. So I love the quote from that Gary put in here from Vince Lombardi. And when he talks about setting your goals for your listings, and you want to make sure you hit your goals every month, it says winning is not a something time; it's an all the time thing. We don't win once in a while. We don't do the right thing once in a while. You do the right, when you do the right all the time, winning is a habit. Unfortunately, so is losing. So do the right thing and work on winning and getting all the listings that you need. So make sure you hit your numbers. So you want to win that every day. So you hear us talk about how to win the day, like what would be a win for the day. Maybe it's going on 2 listing appointments. Maybe it's, I don't know, just, maybe setting 3 appointments, whatever it could be. Just how do you win each day? Make sure you set yourself up to win the day. So now getting sellers used to the team concept. So sometimes people can really struggle with it. I know that when the team concept was first introduced here, it was very difficult for people to understand. They thought, they had to deal with the one agent only. And so they didn't really like the idea of a team concept, but if you walked into your doctor's office and your doctor was at the reception desk and checked you in, and then took you in and started asking some preliminary questions and then submitted the bill at the end of the day, wouldn't you feel a little weird about that if either your doctor or your dentist was doing that? I mean, like even nowadays, you go, oh, you guys, I go to the dentist. I think I see my dentist for like 5 minutes total. I go in, lay at the front, checks me in. I go in, a dental hygienist cleans my teeth. Somebody else comes in, takes x-rays. The dentist comes in, actually looks at the x-rays, talks to me for about 30 seconds, walks out. Then they send me over to a different person who takes my money and pays and sets my next appointment and walks out. So I see the dentist for about 5 minutes. So think of the team concept here with you. in that you're doing what's most productive for you, and then outsource everything else. Somebody else can do set showings for you. Somebody else can answer, take care of inspections. Well, if they're licensed, they can take care of inspections, but can set up, telling you where the utilities are and seeing who the inspectors are and those types of things. So basically, just make sure they understand, when you talk to sellers, and set the expectation up front, that, hey, I work as a team and I do this part of it, but my other person does this and the other person does that. And one trick I've actually found is that you don't really say someone's working for you. I always refer to everybody as my partner, because who do you want to talk to? You want to talk to the person who's working for you, or you want to talk to their partner? Oh, hey, I got this guy to do today, but my partner's going to take care of that for you. Is that okay? Oh, okay, yeah, your partner. Yeah, they're much better at that particular section, so I'm going to have them take care of that. But they're my partner, and if there's any problems, I'll be real close by. But my partner is better at that than I am, so just let them take care of that. And that usually solves everything. So, let's see. Lawyers, doctors, and most professionals all tend to work with the belief that the best services are provided by a team who specializes, led by a head specialist. So again, if you're going to, we're professionals, so work as a team. Have the person who does best at a particular job to do that job. And if you don't have an assistant, Gary always says, if you don't have an assistant, that means you are the assistant. A good assistant should pay for themselves. So something to consider. As long as it frees you up the time to do the things that you need to do, and they're probably better at the paperwork and doing the things that you're probably not good at anyway. So they can get it done right and fast, and you can go out and make more money. So in order to meet your big financial goals, proper marketing of seller listings cannot just be about getting things sold. It is extremely important that this marketing also generates more buyers and seller leads, which you then can use to capture and follow up in a systematic fashion. So every lead obviously goes back in your database, and all your marketing, you want to think it through. How do I generate buyers for this? And how do I get leads and buyers for this? So a lot of times when you do open houses, I view open houses differently. I view open houses to get more listings. There is something like a 3% buyer rate at open houses. And in my years of doing it, I think I've only seen one house sell at an open house. But I still do the open houses, because if you market your open house correctly, you'll probably get somebody else in the neighborhood who wants to sell. So think about that, and think about ways to improve your marketing. Something we can talk about how to maybe market open houses a little bit better. So again, many agents tend to focus entirely on getting their house listings sold and forget that the listing is also a marketing vehicle. It's easy mistake to make sure that you're receiving multiple offers in a short period of time and focus on representing the offers. One of the things, I see agents do this all the time, and I think it's a bad idea. I see agents are like, oh, I sold this house in one day. Well, if you're a consumer and the agent sold this house in one day, they're going to think, well, geez, why are they're getting a huge commission? They didn't do anything. They don't know that the hard part isn't necessarily getting the house in the contract. It's getting from contract to closing. But they just see that, oh, I sold the house in one day. Well, maybe we don't need an agent, because they can sell in one day. It might take us 3, but we can do it on our own. So I just don't advertise how quickly a house sold. So Gary also recommends, and there's a figure of 17, a marketing checklist for every listing property. So every house you list should have a marketing checklist attached, so that you make sure you're doing all the various marketing to it. Again, when you set your systems, you want to make sure that every house gets treated the same, whether it's a $10,000 house or a $10 million house. You definitely want to market them. Might market them a little bit differently, but you want to make sure that you treat them all the same, and that your check sheets gets done, and you do all the proper standards for each one of those. So your marketing never stops and never rests, because if it does, it loses its effectiveness and the business becomes too vulnerable in market shifts. So as your market kind of comes in, as your business kind of goes up and down, sometimes people will pause marketing and then restart it again later. But the problem with that is it loses effectiveness. So so just keep the marketing part of your business going at all times, which is separate from lead gen. But always marketing, and always lead gen. So leverage. So one of the hardest parts of netting $1 million is hiring leverage. And we're going to spend the next little bit talking about hiring people. And that's one of the hardest things, because you're changing people's lives. You're bringing people into your business and you're giving them a great way to earn income. But the cost of a bad hire is really, really expensive. And then the benefit of a good hire is enormous. So a good hire will really take your business to a new level. A bad hire could almost destroy your company. So that's something you want to think about. So there is a class, Recruit Select. I think we changed it to a newer name recently. There's a process in which you hire. And Gary will tell you to be slow to hire and quick to fire. He will also tell you, don't judge me by the people I hire, judge me by the people I keep. So sometimes you make a mistake and you hire somebody and they don't work out. If they don't work out, you just need to go and reintroduce them to the employment options, see what other options are available for them. Maybe they're not ready for real estate. Maybe they're just not ready to work with you. Maybe, just for whatever reason, just give them an option to go out and find what works for them. So instead of kidding around. So if you have an assistant who can't get the job done, you'll eventually get the job back. I think the very first time I went to Recruit Select, that was something very powerful. That when you give an assistant, you train them, and they come back and they give you whatever it is you're given, and they hand it back to you to do. And this, she was actually talking about an agent she knew had hired their son, and their son was working on something. And after about an hour, he walked in and he handed it back to the agent and said, I just can't do this, and I'm giving this back. And she said, well, that's great, no problem. I'll have your check ready for you tomorrow. And it was her son. He was like, well, what do you mean? It's like, she goes, well, look, if you can't do the work, I can't keep you on. You're handing me back the job. You're basically giving me your job back. So you're resigning in my eyes, and I'll make you your check, and no problems. Just move on. It's time to go. So if you hire somebody and they can't do the job, then reintroduce them to the employment market. So, let's see. Now, because one of the things, when we talk about hiring people, is it does take a lot of time to train somebody. And so when you hire the wrong person, it really takes away from your time. So you're not being all, and earlier in the book, we talked about the work-life balance. When you bring on a new person, that's going to be a little out of whack for a period of time, because you have to do extra. So not only will you be doing the work, but you're also learning a completely new set of skills. So while you're teaching somebody else, you have to have to be able to watch them and do your normal work. And so your life balance will get out of whack. So let's see. So as part of Recruit Select, you'll learn to recruit talent, the right person for the job, learn to train them to do the job, learn to consult them to do the job at a high level, and learn how to keep them. So it is recommended that you go to the class multiple times, because it's another one of the classes that takes a while, like the Bold class, the MREA, all those things. The first time you go, you might not be really ready to understand all of it. And, the second time you go, you're probably in a different place. And so, it's beneficial. And then you just keep going on back and back and back. And before long, you'll have it mastered. But it's a good idea to take the classes multiple times. So hiring capacity talent versus cul-de-sac talent. So capacity talent is someone who can not only do the current job really well, but also has the desire and ability, thus capacity, to learn and take on new tasks and responsibilities. The person's desire and ability to, plus the intelligence to grow beyond the basic job description. He or she can plus it. So in other words, that person is going to take you up higher and improve you. Cul-de-sac talent is someone who can do the current job really well, but who does not have the desire or ability, thus capacity, to learn and take on new tasks and responsibilities. Are they, I used to call it the 501 club. I had some people working for me And I used to joke that at 5:01 they were sitting at happy hour at a bar. That right at 5 o'clock they were ready to go. And it's not so much as their dedication as far as hours go, but just their thought process of they were more interested in what they're going to do that evening than what they were going to do with their career. So if you hire somebody, when you hire people, if they're always thinking about how to improve the company and how to make their job better, and they take ownership of their position, that's the kind of capacity talent you want. You don't want cul-de-sac talent who's basically watching the clock and has their computer already shut down and their purse in their lap and ready to walk out the door at 5 o'clock because that's what they do every day. A person who really focuses and takes on the responsibility really helps your company improve and will take you to the next level. And one of the hardest things about that is, I think I mentioned this before, is that I've hired people because I liked them and I knew they weren't really right for the job. And it was a nightmare. So not only did I like them, but I still liked them when I had to fire them. Make sure that they have a capacity for the job and make sure that they take ownership for the job. Like I said, I had this one assistant and really liked her. She was, phenomenal, but she didn't like her job. She was never in the office. So as soon as I would leave the office, she would take off and go down the street to get a coffee or something, and she'd be gone for an hour. And then she left right at 5 o'clock every day, and a lot of things just weren't getting done, and it didn't work. So hire the right person. They'll make mistakes, but if they're the right person, they'll learn from the mistakes, and it'll improve things overall. So you'll know pretty quickly if they have capacity. I actually had another assistant with me, and we were listening to Gary talk, and this is exactly what he was talking about: was hiring capacity versus cul-de-sac talent. And she knew exactly what he was saying. She kind of looked at me and said, do I still have a job? And I said, well, yeah, but just know that if you don't change, this is the position you're going to be in. You're not really going to go up above this. She didn't change and she didn't go above that. So that's just how it works. So anyway, capacity talent individual would be a capacity plus current job and grow businesses. Cul-de-sac talent, there's a nice chart on page 238 of my book, figure 4, and just kind of showing as the company gets bigger, their job will grow in the company. Gary often talks about, and I forget her name, I apologize for this, but very early on, he hired an assistant, and she's actually very high up in the company now. So originally she was just a personal assistant, but she had such great capacity that as the company grew and expanded and grew, because I don't know if you guys know the story or not, but Gary started off with another company as an agent and decided he wanted, he wasn't happy there, so he decided to start his own company. And he started off as a one location franchise, one location individual, and then franchised it out a little bit, and then kind of grew from there. So one of the first hires he made was this young lady who was his assistant at the time, and now she's very high up in the company. Has been with him the whole time, and kind of right hand lady. Was an early investor in the company, and I think she does very well now. Ben Kinney talks about his assistant Janelle. I guess he went through several, and he hired Janelle, and Janelle's been with him for probably about 8 or 10 years now, and I think she's a multimillionaire. And she helps run some of the companies and just some different things. He's bought businesses, he's bought buildings, all kinds of stuff with Janelle, because he wanted to keep her around because she's so great. So he gives her parts of the business so that she'll stay on. So I thought I want you to consider this: capacity talent might plus or improve the job, or someday even replace you on many additional tasks and functions you currently do. Cul-de-sac talent won't be able to. Capacity talent not only supports talent, but also pushes, plus and improving talent, able to replace you by thinking or doing. Cul-de-sac takes only support talent. So in other words, this person, if you hire somebody who's a capacity talent, they may be your replacement in the future. something to think about. So I guess you've heard about expansion. We've talked a lot about expansion. I talked about it in the class a couple weeks ago. With expansion, it's a great way to go into different markets, and you hire some capacity talent there to kind of run the company for you and help you grow and do things for you. So achieving accountability to the right standards. So the biggest thing is anybody you bring into your organization, they know this, you set a standard, they know what the standard is, and everyone has to achieve the same standard. This is our standard. This is our minimum standard. This is what we're expecting. Here's the quality standard. Here's what we do for every client. You can go above and beyond that, but this is the bare minimum that we need to do for everybody. Set those standards and everybody has to stick to them. So many agents think that their customers will use them because of the level of service they provide. While that's generally accurate, it's more precisely true that their customers use them because of the standard of service they expect and receive. So again, you set the standard and you said this is the minimum standard, and how do you constantly improve that standard? So everyone is going to work for you, has to have that same standard and understand that this is what they need to do. So most agents are able to deliver a high quality service when they do it personally, but the quality suffers dramatically when someone else is in charge of that. So if you plan to enjoy the benefits of people leverage in your real estate business, you'll have to make sure your team defines and documents what your customer experience should be. So a large part of Command, I don't know how much you guys use Command or if you use something else instead, but Command has tracking so where you can see where you are on your leads and all your statuses, and making sure that everyone gets, the process gets done. So what inspections have been done, and have you reviewed the HUD or this closing disclosure, all those different standards, all those different steps. So you want to think about everything that you do and make sure that everyone else is held accountable to it. So write that list out of all the steps that you see that you do for your clients, and you can put that into Command as tasks that need to be completed. And that way you can track where you are in the process. And what's great about Command is it works obviously for teams and for individuals. So depending on no matter how big or how small you are, you can still use Command. Or if you use something else, that's fine too. Just you want to make sure you can track all the tasks and make sure everything gets done. So the best possible way to document standards for your business is to have the first person you hire document the way you want things to get done. A good trick that I learned, I had trouble getting my assistants to document the whole process of what we were doing, basically setting our standards and documenting how everything was supposed to be done. So I figured out a way to do it pretty easily. When I hired a new assistant, I would tell them that each day, I'm gonna walk you through this process, because you want a manual, basically. You want a company manual of what needs to be done. So I would tell them, all right, we're gonna document everything I'm doing. Every day I'm gonna tell you what you're gonna do today. And here's the process. We're gonna go through the whole process from listing to closing. And I want you to document it. At the end of the day, I want you to type it all up and send it to me so I can review it. Right? So every day you get that list, you can go through it, you correct whatever they misunderstood. So it gives you chances as part of your training to make sure that they have the right information or don't have the right information. And then when you're done, when you have all that set up, you have your manual there. They've already created that manual for you. So you have them put it all together as far as a book goes, and then have them constantly updated. So when you create a new process, it goes in the manual. You delete a process, it goes to the manual. You add a new lead generation source, put that in the manual. This is how it goes with this lead generation source. A law changes, you put that in the manual. So now we have to do this, or now we have to do that. So, and that's how you get your company, your team manual created. This way, and what's great about that is, so say one day your assistant just gets up and walks out, and you have to go out and hire a new assistant. Well, there you go. You have your book. Just, all right, day one, here's your manual. You're not sure about something? It's in the manual. If it's not in the manual, ask me, and then you're going to put it in the manual. And that's, that way it makes it easier to replace somebody if you have to. So system documentation is an ongoing process. It's never complete. Endeavor to start early and review your systems on a regular basis. So if you have it documented and you have the settings, set it down, the systems down, that way you make sure that everyone gets treated the same. It's great for fair housing because you can say, well, I treated this buyer the same way I treated this buyer. I treated this seller the same way I treated this seller. So here's the steps that I do. There's the steps I do for every seller, every buyer. And so therefore you don't have any concerns about fair housing. He goes on and talks a little more about documentation. We're getting short on time, so I'm going to try and speed up. So, all right. So when you hire people, accountability. Some people like accountability, some people don't. If you, well, what Gary says, you have to inspect what you expect. If you expect them to do something, you need to be able to inspect it and make sure it's being done. And he recommends setting weekly appointments with individuals who report to you. Work from a specific job description and work from a very specific goal worksheet. So you create a job description for that person when you hire them. Now, if you recall earlier in the book, I think we talked about this or things in the book, you're really only going to have 2 people report to you. If you have a really good executive assistant, then that executive assistant will start hiring everybody and they'll report to them. So you really only want the chain of command to be only 2 people reporting to one person at any given time. So you have those weekly appointments that you have with your 2 people that are supposed to report to you and give you the update on where you are with everything in the company. Make sure that they have a specific job description and you have listed what's most important first, and then work from a very specific goal worksheet. Again, inspect what you expect. So by creating teams, you want the team to get rock and rolling and make things going. And this is where you get to can get kind of funky. I think Stephen Akery seems like he does a good job with this. There seems to be good camaraderie in their team, and it seems like it kind of spurs on more energy. So articulate clearly the key goals for your business. These are what you need to refer to as big rocks for the business. For example, the main business goal might be to reach $80 million in closed production. So now your team has a rock. Right? Ensure that each team member understands exactly how they fit into their role, their job description, and contributes to the achievement of this. So make sure to recognize everybody as they achieve the goals and how they help. So everyone knows what the big goal is. Everyone knows how their role fits into it, and then recognition for the people who are helping. Make it clear that the business is not on target to hit the big rock, that everything else in the business is in jeopardy of being reevaluated, including individuals and their roles. I'll say that again and slow and repeat that. So make it clear that if the business is not on target to hit the big rock, then everything about the business is in jeopardy of being reevaluated, including individuals and goals. If you're not hitting your goals, you need to sit down and figure out why not. Is it something, there's people not doing their goals, people not motivated on their own? Do you have to give them more motivation? It can be some very tough conversations. So while you're going to be very tough on accountability to standards and goals, you also celebrate and reward great results. As people hit their goals, be grateful and be thankful. But again, tough love. You're trying to help people make money here. Some people want to be held accountable, some people don't. If they don't want to be held accountable, maybe they're not the right person for your team. The difference between a group and a team. So a group have no clearly stated goals. They have no daily assignments or tasks, no sense of urgency. One person feels responsible for the success and failure and competition within the group. There is friendly competition and then there's just competition where people are kind of bickering with each other as opposed to just trying to work and improve the whole team. So a team clearly communicated goals in writing and big rocks, or otherwise known as big rocks. So clearly written job descriptions. What are the roles and who's filling those roles? So healthy sense of urgency with specific accountability. Again, Gary talks a lot about accountability. And then everyone feels responsible for the team's success or failure. Teams take on outside competition. So each person needs to be responsible for their jobs and they want to be responsible to make sure the team hits their goals. And I don't know, I like a little bit of friendly competition inside the team, but you definitely want to try and compete with other teams that or other groups that that are similar, who you feel are competition for you. So, and it could be a team in another market, or it could be a team in your own market of trying to match up. Like how do you compare versus this, or how do you compare against that? That's always something I like to do when I look at numbers. When I look at my sales goals, and when I look at my numbers, I like to look at how the overall how the market's doing too, not just me. So if you're up, you might think, oh, hey, I'm doing great. I'm up 5% over top of last year. And then you start looking at the market numbers and all the agents are up 20%. And that shows, well, okay, I'm not really doing as good as everybody else. I need to work on a little bit harder. Maybe you're up 30% and the other agents are doing 20%. So maybe you're doing better than everybody else. Maybe you're doing better than other people in other markets. It's always good to kind of, again, know your numbers so you should know how you're doing. And it helps you know, well, is it the market overall, or is it my efforts? So, and of course, networking with other agents, find out how they're making more money and what they're doing, how many changes they're making to improve things is another way to kind of to help your business and study some stuff. Let's see, got just a couple minutes left. Combining quality service and quantity of service. So when you strive to build a sales business that does a large number of transactions, you'll most certainly face the quantity versus quality issue. Question is, what is the quality of service and how much time does it take to deliver? One common perspective holds that the more time an agent spends on a client, the better the quality of service the experience is. The belief is that customer satisfaction is efficiently achieved by personal contact and lots of time spent doing it. However, our experience with top agents doing high volumes and servicing large numbers of clients proves another perspective of this. These agents achieve high marks for service and enjoy the abundance of word of mouth referrals, yet they spend less time with their clients than the average agent. So again, time doesn't always necessarily mean quality. So you want to make sure you're getting good quality, and it may or may not mean less, giving them more and more time. So let's see, we're almost out. So let's see. So one of the things when we get into money on page 249, and a lot of times you'll have your assistant take care and handle all that, your assistant, or maybe at some point you'll hire somebody specifically to handle the money. The biggest thing is you want to be able to inspect it. Some agents go as far as to let the assistants write checks and do everything for them, but you want to make sure you can look at it, make sure that I heard a great thing to do is make sure your statements come to your house as opposed to the office, because then they can get lost. If they come to your house, you can look at the statements and make sure that everything's on the up and up. And you want a spreadsheet once a month. I don't know if you guys look at the P&Ls every month for your company, but you should run a P&L and see how you're doing every month and every year. And depending on what program you're using, you can actually compare it year over year or month over month to make sure how you're doing. So Gary talks about the bigger your business gets, the more detailed your budgeting process can and should be. This is one reason we stress the importance of implementing the models of the front end of your career before things have a chance to get overwhelming. So keep an eye on your budgets. It's imperative. So use the budget models and systems in place as early as you can. Then over time, you'll become more and more proficient with them. In this way, by the same time start getting more detailed, you'll feel comfortable and capable of handling the more challenging issues as they arrive. So, all right, so we're pretty much here at the end of time. I do appreciate you guys being here. If you have any questions or anything like that, you can feel free to reach out to me. I won't take any here online. I don't know if I assume everyone's got a book. If you can find one of these, this version is kind of cool. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it's the leadership edition, and it's tabbed in here. With my background seems to be interfering with it, but it's got individual tabs, so it's easy to kind of find the different areas. I like using that, and of course, write your name in and highlight it. We've been promised a new version of the Millionaire Real Estate book, agent book, for about 5 years, but I think since Garrett took over command, this kind of got put on the back burner. I'm hearing we're getting closer to it, but yeah, I don't know. So anyway, I hope you guys have a great day, and I appreciate you being here with me. And it's being recorded, so you can watch it again and again if you want to. And have a great week. So thank you so much. Bye-bye.